It's Dan Riccio, Sportsnet Tonight. David Würzberger now joining us, NBA writer for Vice Sports, FanRag Sports, and Fansided. And you can follow him at _Verts on Twitter. Thanks for doing this, pal. The Golden State Warriors, I guess, crisis averted. They beat the Knicks today.
You know, if the bar for avoiding a crisis is being the Knicks, I'm pretty sure every team would be feeling pretty good right now. But it's funny you use the word crisis. I mean, it seems like the whole world went up in flames as soon as they lost 2 in a row. But the Warriors have made a habit out of, maybe looking a little shaky and then figuring it out, at least this season, obviously. That wasn't the case in last year's finals. But, they looked a little shaky coming out of the gates, with Durant coming in, and they sort of figured that out. And now with him gone, they have to readjust. They have to go back to last year's team in a way. And I think they'll be fine. I think some of the panic is a bit overstated, but beating the Knicks is certainly a good place to get back on track.
When the Raptors beat the Knicks earlier this week, it felt like liberating because, without Kyle Lowry, it was just a tough game, and they found a way to win it at the end. But, two different worlds. In the Warriors, without – I know Charles Barkley was saying that they can't win the NBA title without Kevin Durant. I mean, we may never find that out. I imagine Durant will be back for the playoffs. But do you think that with the – I guess part of the discussion has been, well, they sacrificed a lot of that depth that made them so strong last year to get Durant. Do you think that factors here at all as we near the playoffs?
I don't think they sacrificed as much depth as people made it out to be. Really, they lost big guys in Barnes and Bogut, but when you have a team that's just won 73 games and is, it can easily put up 60 wins in a season, you can just get all these little pieces. I mean, they got Matt Barnes, they got JaVale McGee. They get guys that just say, hey, come, this is, as close as you'll get to an automatic ring, and you can get that talent and depth back. Now, it's not the most amazing depth. They have no cap space to sign some real contributors. But, down the stretch of the regular season, we're in March and April, and it's sort of the doldrums around the league. Now, I don't think it's going to play a real big role in how they close out the season. I imagine once Durant is back, whenever that is, there'll be another adjustment period because, really, I mean, they're losing their second-best defensive player and arguably their best player. Right, I think Durant's offense, gets a lot of the attention, but defensively, he's been huge for the Warriors. It was really him stepping up on that end that helped them, get through that little rough patch in the beginning there, and so they have to figure out how to defend without him. And I think they'll be fine just to sort of hang on to that 1 seed and keep the ball rolling until he gets back.
David Würzberger, our guest here on Sportsnet Tonight. The Wizards squeaked by the Magic today, 115-114. Now, against the Raptors this week, the home and home, it was deemed a fairly large home and home, at least from a Toronto perspective. And to get one of them was huge for the Raptors. But, I mean, without Kyle Lowry, that seemed like about as good a Raptor performance as you could possibly get. And for the Wizards, I feel like they could be the second best team in the East. They just don't show it every night.
Yeah, it's weird. That 2-4 stretch between Boston, Washington, and Toronto, I mean, it's really hard to figure out, right? The Wizards came on late, so, who knows how good they can actually be. The Celtics had a lot of injury problems. And now the Raptors, you lose Kyle Lowry, and that's huge. I mean, he's their best player. You saw it against the Bucks the other night. Right, their point guards were just flooding into the paint because you have to play Corey Joseph and DeLon Wright instead of Kyle Lowry. So we haven't seen Lowry healthy with Serge Ibaka, and it's really tough to sort of figure out that 2-4 spot. I feel like the seeding won't even tell the whole tale. It'll come down to the playoffs to see who's better in the whole series. And the Wizards are scary. I mean, it's funny coming in because there was all this talk about Wall and Beal, can they fit together, and Scott Brooks. He's not a name that really asserts a lot of confidence among the casual fan, but he's a really good coach, and he sort of figured it out there. I mean, they have Markieff Morris really playing well and hard, so it's really tough. Even from a talent standpoint, just straight looking on paper, it is hard to order the Celtics, the Wizards, and the Raptors, in a way that you can say, yes, this is exactly how it pans out, because all these teams are really good.
Yeah, I just feel like the Raptors, I mean, they feel like they don't have enough right now without Kyle Lowry. I mean, as much as DeMar DeRozan is a big part of the team, they can survive a short stretch without him. Lowry, it's an entirely different story. I mean, he just means so much to them offensively and defensively. Then you factor in Patrick Patterson seems to be playing at less than 100%. Damari Carroll got hurt yesterday. What you saw last night with the Raptors losing to Milwaukee was DeMar DeRozan just can't put this team on his shoulder every single night and provide the offense that's needed to keep them in games. And last night, that's pretty much the crux of the loss to Milwaukee. So for the Raptors, like, finishing fourth isn't the end of the world, but it's less ideal than what it seemed like earlier in the year when they seemed the surefire second best team in the East.
And that's what happens in the NBA. You roll the dice and hope guys don't get hurt, and it's why you make a trade for a guy like Serge Ibaka, because, and this is just one man's humble opinion, but what if the Cavs got hit with all these injuries, which they're having injury problems of their own, so it's not even a what if. Then we'd be talking if those two teams met in the playoffs. Hey, the Cavs are short some guys. Maybe this is a series. Now, right now, it's not really looking like the case with Lowry out, but the Raptors, I think they made the right move in getting him, and I think they could if they can get past this little rough patch. And the real problem with the fourth seed is that you're going to have to run into the Cavs in the second round. That's the big issue.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I guess, and if you want to take a rosy-colored glasses kind of look at it, Kevin Love, like, if he's still hurt or is just nursing his way back from injury, and maybe it's better to play the Cavs earlier because you're probably going to run into them no matter what. But they seem like a wrecking ball no matter what. As far as the Cavs go, like, even if you are beating them, J.R. Smith might, hurt you and your children in the process. Did you see what he did last night against the Miami Heat? Like, the guy's not even suited up and he's going after guys. He's quite the character, that J.R. Smith.
Yeah, it's funny to think of him. He was a throw-in with Iman Shumpert in that deal, sending both of them from the Knicks to the Cavs. It was just sort of like, hey, get this contract off our books if you want Shumpert. And, he's actually been a really reliable player for them. It's funny how that works.
Yeah, it's crazy, but it was just funny to see him storm the Heat bench after the game last night for a late dunk in a 30-point game, which the Cavs lost. The Spurs making the playoffs for the 20th season in a row. It feels like they're I mean, I don't see how they don't break the record of 22 at this point. I mean, Popovich has just worked wonders with this Spurs team, and it always feels like we kind of underrate them every year. What do you make of the Spurs stretch and just how impressive it is?
I think if we ever needed a constant reminder of how I don't know how to say it nicely, how dumb we are as basketball fans sometimes, it's the Spurs. How do we keep falling for this little trick where we're just like, the Spurs, and they'll tail off a little bit this year, maybe they won't be as good, and here they are again. Forget the playoff streak. They're on pace for 60 wins. That's ridiculous. They just lost Tim Duncan, a generational superstar, but it's okay because they're the Spurs, and they just naturally just fell into another generational superstar in Kawhi Leonard. So it's really crazy how they keep just making us look silly year after year. Now, I'm not saying they're definitely going to beat the Warriors this year or anything like that, but you can't sleep on them once again. And the way Popovich does it is that he adapts, he makes use of all his guys, he finds talent around the league that people don't. I guess people miss on. I mean, look at Dwayne Dedmon. He was signed for $6 million over 2 years, I believe, while Timofey Mozgov and Joakim Noah, much lesser centers, were raking in the big bucks. Here comes Dedmon. He's been starting. He's been great for them. I really don't know how they do it. They just want to run a really good basketball organization. They remind me of the Patriots, but more likable. Like, like they find guys somehow. They always are competitive, but for what, I guess because there's no stories of them cheating. That's probably what tips the scale in Popovich's favor when it comes to that.
David,
That's probably it.
Yeah, really appreciate the time here tonight. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for this, pal.
Thank you very much for having me on.